My professor is demanding I expose my cancer to the whole class, so I'm ruining her career by doing exactly what she wants. My biology professor, Ms. Justine, has always been a rules are rules kind of professor. She's refused deadline extensions for students traveling to funerals, keeps us in for the full hour even if she ends 20 minutes early, and has given students a 0 because they used a different font to the one she requested. And last year, when I got diagnosed with melanoma, I experienced her cruelty firsthand. We had an exam coming up worth 20% of our semester's grade, which landed on the same day I had a treatment scheduled. Now, I'm an extremely private person. My parents don't even know I have cancer, so me emailing her to ask if I could sit the exam a different day for urgent personal reasons was a big deal. She told me no at first. Rules are rules, no exceptions. I thought that was fair. She didn't know why. So I responded again this time telling her that the reasons were medical, could not be rescheduled, and hinted at my weight and hair loss. Her response was condescending this time. Students who are actually trying prioritize their academic priorities. I was so offended I didn't even text a reply. I just attached screenshots and a PDF document to prove I wasn't lying, then 2 weeks later missed the exam. I got an email that same day from her. I expected something, but nope. All I got was that my grade was a 0. Literally nothing else. My grade dropped from an A to a C, and now my scholarship was in jeopardy. I was in disbelief. I went to the dean's office the next day, and his assistant saw me first. When I told her, she seemed shocked and looked like she took my complaint very seriously. She promised the dean would see it personally, and assured me they take these situations very seriously. I left feeling confident. But then the next morning I walked into class. Ms. Justine stopped mid-sentence when she saw me. You see, my hair had been falling out in clumps, and I'd finally just buzzed it all off the night before. Ms. Justine just stared for a moment, then said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Well, look at Mr. Joseph's fancy new haircut. Very trendy." After class, she cornered me near the door. "I heard you had concerns about me. You know, I really respect your privacy. I'd hate for that to change." The threat was crystal clear. For 3 weeks after that, she made my life hell. She scheduled pop quizzes during typical chemo times and made snide comments about commitment and sacrifice. Then came the event that changed everything. Mandatory virtual faculty panel. All students in the honors program had to attend with cameras on. It was being live streamed to the college website. Ms. Justine sent out an aggressive email 2 days before. Students must have their cameras on and phones off. I emailed her privately, explaining I had a medical appointment during the panel. Of course, I got no response. This time, however, I also sent a follow-up telling her my camera would be off. Again, I got nothing. The morning of the event, I directly messaged her again 10 minutes before it started. When the panel began, I was at the hospital with my nurse who knew all about Ms. Justine. We had even joked about what would happen if Ms. Justine actually began demanding I turn my camera on. Well, halfway through the dean's opening remarks, Ms. Justine interrupted him. "Excuse me, could we please have all of the students turn their cameras on?" I quickly typed in the group chat that I'd contacted her about a private situation preventing me from turning on my camera. She ignored it completely and called me out by name. "Mr. Joseph, we're waiting for you." I was baffled. She knew I was sitting in the chemo ward with an IV in my arm and monitors beeping around me, and she still insisted. That's when my nurse looked at me and said, "She wants to see you so badly? Show her everything." I laughed about it at first, but then I thought again, smiled, and said, "Crew up." We positioned my laptop to capture the whole scene. IV lines, the chemo port, my hospital gown, the EKG monitor in the background. I turned on my camera right as Ms. Justine told me to do so again. The second I did, I started speaking, and that made me the main focus of the interface. Everyone could see me in the hospital setting. Students' faces dropped. They literally gasped. Eyes went wide and they covered their mouths. The chat exploded. I told everyone. I asked Ms. Justine through email and Teams if I could opt out of having my camera on, but she insisted. I paused to let that sink in. "I want to apologize for my fancy new haircut," as Ms. Justine called it. "The chemotherapy made that decision for me." The dean's face went white. "Mr. Joseph, you are more than welcome to turn your camera off. I am so sorry for the misunderstanding." I continued with theatrical politeness. "Thank you so much for making a special exception for me. I've been trying to keep my medical situation private, but Ms. Justine felt it was important for everyone to see me today." 2 people immediately left the call. Ms. Justine and someone named Anthony, who was Ms. Justine's boss. The rest of the call went without a problem. Until later that night, I got a call from Ms. Justine. "After class, tomorrow." I hung up immediately, my hands trembling as I set the phone down. The nurse beside me raised an eyebrow, but I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight, constricted by more than just the effects of treatment. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice echoing in my head. My roommate's snoring usually annoyed me, but now it felt like a comfort, proof that someone else existed in this suddenly hostile world. Around 2 a.m., he mumbled something in his sleep that sounded like "stop crying," though I hadn't made a sound. I pressed my face into my pillow and counted the hours until morning. I arrived at campus at 6 a.m., exhausted but wired on anxiety. The coffee shop was nearly empty, which is why I immediately spotted Ms. Justine sitting in the corner booth with 2 other biology students. The moment they saw me, one grabbed her backpack and rushed out, mouthing, "I'm sorry," as she passed. The other student just stared at his coffee cup, refusing to make eye contact before following his classmate out the door. Ms. Justine sipped her coffee calmly, watching me over the rim of her cup. I turned and left without ordering anything. Walking to the biology building, I passed 2 professors deep in conversation. One was scrolling through her phone, while the other shook his head. "That unfortunate panel incident," I heard one say. "Some students will do anything for attention these days." The woman woman with the phone glanced up, saw me, and quickly looked away. They both fell silent as I passed. My assigned seat in biology class had been moved. Where I usually sat in the middle row, my nameplate now marked a desk directly in front of Ms. Justine's podium. She taught class as if nothing had happened, but every time I coughed, a side effect of the treatment, she would pause mid-sentence. "Do you need to leave, Mr. Joseph?" she asked with exaggerated concern the third time it happened. "We wouldn't want you to be uncomfortable." The other students shifted in their seats. Nobody would look at me. After class, I tried to slip out quickly, but Ms. Justine intercepted me near the door. Her voice dropped low enough that only I could hear. "You almost cost me my job yesterday." Her hands shook slightly, coffee drops spattering onto her shoes. "My daughter needs me employed. Remember that?" I backed away without responding and headed straight for the dean's office. The assistant who had been so sympathetic yesterday now seemed flustered when she saw me. "I'm afraid the dean is in emergency meetings all day," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Her computer screen was angled away, but I caught a glimpse of an email chain with "legal department" in the subject line. Regarding yesterday's events, my stomach dropped. They weren't planning to help me. They were planning to protect themselves. I found my car in the parking lot after my next class. A folded piece of paper was tucked under the windshield wiper. The handwriting looked deliberately disguised, but there was something feminine about the loops and curves. "Some battles aren't worth winning. A friend." I crumpled the note and shoved it in my pocket, my hands shaking as I unlocked my car. Someone was watching me. I could feel it. When I got back to my dorm that evening, my roommate was sitting on his bed with a box beside him. My belongings were already packed inside. "I'm sorry, man," he said, not looking up from his laptop. "My pre-med advisor is Ms. Justine's friend. She writes recommendation letters for her top students. I can't risk it." "You're kicking me out?" I stared at the box, recognizing my textbooks piled on top. "Just for a while, until this blows over." He still wouldn't look at me. "You understand, right? I need those recommendations." I understood perfectly. Ms. Justine had begun her campaign, and I was already losing ground. The next morning at the hospital, my usual nurse seemed troubled. As she prepared my IV, she mentioned casually, "Someone called yesterday asking about your treatment schedule. Said it was for insurance purposes." "Insurance companies don't call directly, do they?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "That's what I thought." She adjusted the drip rate, frowning. "I didn't tell them anything, of course. High pay and all that. But it was strange. Strange wasn't the word for it. Ms. Justine was gathering intelligence, learning my schedule, my vulnerabilities. I closed my eyes and tried to focus on anything other than the cold spreading through my veins from the IV. Later that day, I discovered my study group had rescheduled their meeting. I only found out when I showed up to an empty library room. A text came through 5 minutes later from my usual study partner. "Sorry, forgot to tell you about the time change." She had been in class when Ms. Justine cornered me. She had seen everything. The isolation was spreading like the cancer had, silent and systematic. Each small betrayal, each turned back, each whispered conversation that stopped when I approached. Ms. Justine was orchestrating it all, and she was just getting started. The financial aid office was my next stop. I needed to confirm my scholarship status after the exam fiasco, but the moment I walked in, the atmosphere felt different. The clerk who usually greeted me with a smile now busied herself with paperwork, avoiding eye contact. "There's been an anonymous report filed against you for academic dishonesty," she said quietly, sliding a form across the counter. The timestamp showed it was submitted exactly 1 hour after yesterday's biology class ended. "Your scholarship is under review pending investigation." My legs felt weak. Without that scholarship, I couldn't afford treatment, let alone tuition. The timing was too precise to be coincidental. At the campus counseling center, I hoped to find someone to talk to about the mounting pressure. The receptionist's face fell when she saw me approach. "I need to make an appointment," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced nervously at her computer screen, then leaned forward. "Ms. Justine is on our advisory board. She oversees student mental health services." She slipped a business card across the desk while whispering, "Try off campus." Even my potential support systems were compromised. I pocketed the card and left, feeling the walls closing in. That afternoon, I received a text from Anthony, Ms. Justine's boss, who had fled the panel. He wanted to meet at an off-campus diner. I found him in a back booth, coffee cup trembling in his hands. "She has tenure," he said without preamble. "You don't." His voice dropped lower. "She knows things about everyone. How do you think she's survived 3 decades here? So I should just give up? Let her destroy my life?" He pushed a manila folder across the table. Inside were emails from other students over the years, similar complaints that went nowhere. These are the ones who tried to fight. Notice how none of them graduated. Driving back to campus, my phone erupted with notifications. Email after email flooded in. Dropped from the honors program pending investigation. Campus job under review. Parking privileges suspended. All sent within a 5-minute window from different departments. The coordination was surgical. My best friend Nathan had reluctantly agreed to let me crash at his apartment after the dorm situation. When I arrived that evening, he was sitting at his kitchen table with his laptop open. "I'm sorry about this timing," he said, not meeting my eyes, "but Ms. Justine offered to write me a recommendation letter yesterday for Johns Hopkins." On his screen, I could see the draft she'd already sent him, glowing praise for a student who showed exceptional judgment and character. "Nathan, you know what she's doing to me." "I know." His voice cracked. "But this is my future. You understand, right?" I understood. She was systematically buying off everyone in my life with the currency of academic advancement. The next morning's chemotherapy session brought a new level of violation. After treatment, I found Ms. Justine waiting in the hospital parking garage, leaning against my car. She held up her phone, showing a screenshot of my emergency contact form. "Your parents' number is right here," she said conversationally. Imagine their shock, learning their son has been hiding cancer while publicly humiliating a concerned professor. "You wouldn't I?" She stepped closer. "You tried to destroy destroy my career. My daughter depends on me. Did you think about her when you pulled your little stunt? I said nothing, my hands clenched at my sides. Drop out, she continued, quietly, or I make that call. After she left, I sat in my car for an hour, shaking. She'd found my deepest vulnerability, the parents who still didn't know their son was fighting cancer. 3 days later, I couldn't postpone the inevitable. I drove home, exhausted from treatment and stress, only to find an unfamiliar car in the driveway. Through the living room window, I saw Ms. Justine sitting with my parents, coffee cups on the table between them. My mother was crying. My father's face looked carved from stone. I walked in to hear Ms. Justine saying, "Just worried about his attention-seeking behavior. The other faculty members are concerned too." "Mr. Joseph," she said, standing smoothly, "I was just explaining to your parents how concerned I am about you, the way you've been acting out, the lies about medical conditions. Get out of my house," I said quietly. My mother gasped. "Joseph, this professor drove 2 hours because she cares about you." Ms. Justine gathered her things with practiced grace. "I'll leave you to talk. Please know my door is always open." She paused beside me at the door. "Your parents are lovely people. They deserve to know." After she left, the confrontation I'd dreaded for months finally erupted. My parents demanded explanations about the cancer, about hiding it, about humiliating a caring professor who was just trying to help. "She drove all this way because she cares," my father kept repeating, as if the distance somehow proved her benevolence. When I tried to explain the pattern of harassment, the calculated cruelty, they looked at me like I was delusional. The cancer revelation was overshadowed by their belief that I'd wronged a concerned teacher. That night, I found my mother in my room, going through my things. She'd given Ms. Justine my medical files to help her understand. The stack of papers was spread across my childhood desk, and I noticed immediately that one page was missing, the psychiatric evaluation from my sophomore year of high school, when depression had nearly ended everything. "Mom, where's the page about that sweet professor said she needed to understand your full history to help you better?" My mother's eyes were red from crying. "Why didn't you tell us you were sick?" The missing page contained my darkest moment. Now, Ms. Justine had it. The next morning, I tried to file a harassment complaint at the local police station. The officer behind the desk pulled up my name and frowned. "There's already a complaint filed by a Professor Justine. Says you've been stalking her, sending threatening emails." He turned his screen so I could see. She brought quite a bit of documentation. Every email I'd sent asking for exam accommodations had been reframed. Timestamps appeared altered. My desperate attempts to advocate for myself now looked like an obsessive student harassing a professor. "But she's the one." "Sir, I suggest you stay away from this professor. These are serious allegations." Back at the hospital for my next treatment, the stress manifested physically. My blood pressure spiked dangerously high when my phone buzzed with another email from university administration. The nurse had to adjust my medications twice. "Your cortisol levels are through the roof," she said, concerned. "Stress like this can seriously impact your treatment effectiveness." Halfway through the session, I had to rush to the bathroom. The violent nausea was expected, but the blood in my vomit wasn't. I stared at the red swirling in the hospital toilet, realizing I'd been so focused on fighting Ms. Justine that I'd been skipping meals, missing medication doses. In the mirror, my reflection looked worse than when I'd started treatment. The stress was literally culling me faster than the cancer. When I returned to Nathan's apartment that evening, my key wouldn't work. My belongings were piled outside the door in garbage bags. A text from Nathan explained everything. I got into her research program. "I'm sorry, you understand." My laptop bag was missing from the pile. With nowhere else to go, I slept in my car until a security guard knocked on the window at 3 a.m., telling me to move along. I ended up in a 24-hour laundromat, dozing fitfully in a plastic chair. Around dawn, the attendant woke me. "Someone's been calling here all night, asking if a sick young man was here. Described you perfectly. You in some kind of trouble?" Even my attempts to hide were being tracked. I gathered my things and left, wondering where someone with cancer could disappear when they had chemotherapy appointments to keep. My oncologist was blunt at our next consultation. "You've missed 2 appointments. Your weight's dropped dangerously. If you keep this up, the cancer will be the least of your problems. I've been dealing with some personal issues. Whatever they are, they're culling you faster than the melanoma. I'm recommending immediate medical leave from school. You need stability to survive this treatment." He paused, frowning at his computer. "That's odd. Someone called yesterday claiming to be your mother, asking about your treatment schedule, but the number doesn't match your emergency contacts." The violation felt complete. Ms. Justine was attempting to access even my medical information. At the university registrar's office, I tried to follow my doctor's advice and apply for medical leave. The clerk pulled up my record and winced. "There's an academic integrity hold on your account. Professor Justine filed it. You can't make any registration changes until it's resolved." She glanced around, then leaned closer. "Between you and me, she files these every semester on someone, usually right before they try to transfer or withdraw. A pattern. I wasn't special, just the latest in a long line of victims. But knowing that didn't help me escape. Campus security had footage of my missing laptop. They showed me grainy video of Nathan letting someone into his apartment while I was at chemotherapy. The timestamp matched perfectly with my treatment schedule. "Can you identify who he let in?" I asked, though I already knew. "Video's not clear enough for positive ID," the security officer said, but they knew exactly where to go. In and out in under 5 minutes. My evidence, my lifeline to proving my case, gone. The emergency meeting with the dean's office felt like a tribunal. Ms. Justine sat across from me, a stack of printed emails between us. She'd presented my medical accommodation requests as stalking behavior, complete with edited timestamps suggesting I'd continued contacting her after being warned to stop. "These emails clearly show a pattern of harassment," she said calmly. "I tried to handle this privately, but Mr. Joseph's behavior has escalated." I wanted to scream that she'd edited everything, that she'd stolen my laptop with the original emails. But without evidence, I was just a desperate student making wild accusations against a tenured professor. The dean's expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Joseph, these are serious allegations. Perhaps it would be best if you took some time away from campus to focus on your health. They wanted me gone. The liability I represented was too great. After the meeting, I collapsed in a bathroom stall. The janitor who found me 20 minutes later helped me to a bench, pressing a bottle of water into my hands. "You're that kid she's after this semester," he said quietly. "She's done this before. Usually they just leave. You're lasting longer than most." He gave me a protein bar from his lunch. "Don't let her see you're breaking. That's when she goes for the throat." Student legal services was my last hope, but the lawyer assigned to me kept checking her phone throughout our meeting, cutting me off mid-sentence. "Without your laptop, without the original emails, it's your word against hers. She's tenured, published, connected. She gestured vaguely at my gaunt appearance. "My advice? Cut your losses. Transfer somewhere else. Start fresh. She'll destroy my transcripts. Make sure I can't transfer." The lawyer was already packing up her files. "Then I don't know what to tell you." That evening, I met secretly with the nurse from the chemotherapy ward in the hospital chapel. She'd been documenting Ms. Justine's calls, keeping a careful log. "I'm transferring to another hospital next week," she admitted. "This whole situation, I can't be involved, but I wanted you to have this." She handed me a folder of call logs, times, and dates when someone had tried to access my medical information. "Will you testify if I need you to?" She looked away. "I'm sorry, I have a family too." Another ally lost to fear. The next confrontation came in the parking lot outside the campus library. Ms. Justine appeared beside my car as I fumbled with my keys, exhausted from another failed attempt to find help. "Still fighting?" She held up her phone, showing the missing page from my psychiatric file. My sophomore year sewer slide attempt, laid bare in clinical language. "Imagine if this ended up on the faculty listserv. How long do you think you'd last after that? That's illegal. You stole that from my parents. Prove it." She leaned against my car, blocking my door. "Drop out quietly, Joseph. Cite health reasons. No one will question it. I'll even ensure your scholarship covers your final medical bills. Fighting me will only destroy you faster." "Why?" My voice cracked. "What did I ever do to deserve this? You tried to humiliate me publicly. You threatened my career, my daughter's future." Her mask slipped for a moment, showing something raw and frightening underneath. "Did you think there wouldn't be consequences?" She walked away, leaving me shaking against my car. The page she'd shown me contained my darkest moment, and now she owned it. That night, I made a decision. If the system wouldn't help me, if everyone was too scared or compromised to stand up to her, then I'd have to find another way. I started researching, digging into Ms. Justine's history at the university. There had to be other victims, others who'd fought back. What I found in the university archives made my blood run cold. 3 decades of complaints, all following the same pattern. Students who challenged her, who threatened her authority, systematically destroyed through the same methods she was using on me. Most transferred, some dropped out. One name made me pause. A girl from 5 years ago whose complaint file ended abruptly with a settlement agreement. I had to find her. She might be the key to exposing the pattern, to finally stopping Ms. Justine's reign of terror. But first, I had to survive long enough to fight back. My body was failing, my support system was gone, and Ms. Justine held all the cards. The battle was far from over, but I was running out of time, and she knew it. The IT department was my next stop. I'd remembered something from orientation about login records being kept for security purposes. The tech behind the desk looked barely older than me, with tired eyes behind thick glasses. "I need to see access logs for my university email," I said, sliding my student ID across the counter. He typed for a moment, then frowned. "That's weird. Shows multiple logins from different IP addresses during..." He trailed off, looking at the timestamps. "These are all during business hours from faculty offices." "Which offices?" He glanced around nervously. "I shouldn't say, but this is the 3rd time I've seen this pattern. Always from the same office." He wrote something on a sticky note and slid it to me. Ms. Justine's office number. I took photos of the screen with my backup phone, the one I'd started carrying after she'd somehow accessed my main device. Evidence, finally. That evening, I tracked down the former student from the settlement case. Victoria lived in a basement apartment 40 minutes from campus, and she answered the door with the chain still on. "I can't talk about it," she said immediately when I explained who I was. "The settlement, she's doing it to me now," I interrupted. "The same pattern. I just need to know I'm not crazy." Victoria's face crumpled. She unchained the door and let me in. Her apartment was sparse, curtains drawn tight. She showed me photos on her phone, screenshots she'd kept despite the settlement terms, emails from Ms. Justine, escalating threats, documentation of a systematic campaign that mirrored mine exactly. "She broke me," Victoria whispered. "I was pre-med. Now I work retail and jump every time my phone rings." She gave me a flash drive. "Everything's on there. I'm not supposed to have it, but someone needs to stop her." The next morning, my oncologist refused to continue treatment without addressing my deteriorating condition. "Your body can't handle the chemo with these stress levels. 1 week, Mr. Joseph. Sort this out or find another doctor." I sat in the hospital parking garage, weighing my options. 1 week, 7 days to end this before my own body ended me. Ms. Justine must have sensed my desperation. When I showed up for her office hours, she was waiting with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Joseph, I heard you've been asking questions about me." She held up her phone, showing the IT access logs I'd photographed. "Did you really think I wouldn't know about your little investigation?" My phone buzzed. A notification that my photos had been remotely deleted. She'd been in my cloud storage. "Your password was on your emergency contact form," she said conversationally. "People really should use different passwords for different accounts." "I have backups," I lied. "Do you?" She tilted her head. "Or did Nathan give me your laptop with all your evidence? Did Victoria violate her settlement agreement for nothing?" My blood ran cold. She knew about Victoria. One last chance, Joseph. Leave quietly. I'll even write you a glowing recommendation for wherever you transfer. She pulled out a folder. I've already drafted it. Dated last month, of course, before any of this unpleasantness. You've done this to how many students? Enough to know how it ends. She stood, moving toward the door. You have until tomorrow. After that, your psychiatric records become very public. I spent the night at the campus radio station. The overnight DJ was a friend from freshman year who'd stayed neutral in all this. When I told him everything, his face went pale. We could go live with it, he suggested. Right now. Tell everyone. I considered it, then shook my head. Without evidence, I'd sound like another unstable student making wild accusations. But the idea sparked something else. The next morning, I climbed the stairs to the biology building's roof access. The door was usually locked, but the janitor who'd helped me had mentioned that maintenance sometimes forgot to secure it properly. Today, I got lucky. The roof was wet from overnight rain, puddles reflecting the gray sky. I pulled out my backup phone and started recording, explaining everything from the beginning. If I couldn't win through official channels, maybe public pressure could. I thought I'd find you here. Ms. Justine emerged from the stairwell, breathing hard from the climb. You're predictable, Joseph. I've done this dance before. Stay back, I warned, continuing to record. Or what? You'll jump? They'll find a troubled student with a history of mental health issues who couldn't handle the pressure. She stepped closer, careful on the wet surface. No one will question it. I'm recording everything. Are you? She pulled out her phone. Because I'm about to send your psychiatric records to every faculty member, every student organization, everyone who matters. Your sewers light attempt, your medication history, your therapy notes. Unless you give me that phone. I backed toward the edge, phone held high. Then everyone will know what you are. No, they'll know what you are. A sick, unstable boy who targeted a concerned professor. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Last chance. That's when she lunged for my phone. The wet roof betrayed her. Her foot slipped on a puddle, sending her sliding toward the edge. Her hands scrambled for purchase, finding only smooth, wet concrete. Help me! She managed to catch the gutter, her body hanging over the 4-story drop. Please! I dropped to my knees, grabbing for her wrists, but chemotherapy had stolen my strength, and she was heavier than she looked. Her fingers were slipping. My daughter! She gasped. She needs me. I already deleted everything, I swear. Just pull me up. I strained harder, my weakened muscles screaming. Security cameras would show me trying to save her, but physics didn't care about good intentions. Her wet hands slipped from mine. The sound she made hitting the ground will haunt me forever. Security arrived within minutes, finding me still kneeling at the edge, backup phone recording everything. The footage was clear. Her lunge, her slip, my desperate attempt to save her. We saw it all on the cameras, the security chief said, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. Every second, the next hours blurred together. Police statements, medical evaluation, my parents arriving with tears and apologies. The story hit local news by evening. Professor falls during confrontation with students she'd been harassing. Other victims came forward within days. Ms. Justine survived, but would never walk again. The university settled quietly with all her victims, restoring scholarships and clearing records. Victoria called to thank me, her voice stronger than before. 6 months later, I sat on the same bench where this all started, watching new students rush to class. My cancer was in remission, my degree completed through independent study. The new biology professor waved as she passed, someone kind who actually cared about students. I kept Ms. Justine's final threat in my wallet, the paper soft from handling. Not as a trophy, but as a reminder that surviving isn't the same as winning. Some victories leave scars that never fully heal. The university implemented new oversight policies, anonymous reporting systems, protection for vulnerable students, changes written in bureaucratic language that meant nothing to those who'd already been broken. But at least no other student would face what we did. At least Ms. Justine's reign of terror was over, even if the price was higher than anyone should have to pay. I stood to leave, medical alert bracelet catching the light. Time for another checkup, another scan, another reminder that some battles never really end. They just teach you to fight differently.